Trump administration facing more pressure now this morning to release information from the Jeffrey Epstein investigation.
This as the president urges the public to move on. We're going to get straight to our Leah Bino in our live center this morning with all the latest on this. Good morning, Leah.
Good morning. Yes, this controversy over releasing the Epstein files has reached a bit of a new dimension, and now the Wall Street Journal is getting involved. The newspaper released a report late Thursday alleging that President Trump was among those who wrote personal letters to Epstein for his 50th birthday back in 2003. The president has denied writing the letter, calling it false, malicious, and defamatory. He has threatened to sue Rupert Murdoch, one of the owners of the Wall Street Journal. Now, after this report, the president instructed his attorney general to try to make some of the documents public. Attorney General Pam Bondi says she will seek court permission today to release some of this information.
A grand jury transcript is not going to give you a full scope of what actually was brought into evidence.
And he's been very clear that he wants all credible information, credible evidence to be turned over to the people so that the people can decide.
This comes as Minnesota lawmakers put forward a measure Thursday night calling for the release of information related to the Epstein files. Representative Michelle Fischbach posted pages of the resolution on X last night, saying in part, Democrats had 4 years of Biden to release information on Epstein's disgusting acts. Now, we will keep you updated on the developments on this throughout the day.
My dearest Jeffrey, there must be more to life than having everything. But I won't tell you what it is. We have certain things in common, and enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday. Signed, Donald Trump. How is that? Is that good?
I needed the laugh today. That's good. Hillary Clinton. Oh, we found her. There she is. They've been really silent, the Clintons, on this. Wow, fascinating. So many Democrats are calling for the release of the Epstein list, but the Clintons haven't heard a thing from them. Today is Friday, July 18th, 2025. And we are rip-roaring into the end of the week because we've been right. We've been right, the show's been right, and we are going to spike the football today, right into the faces of the haters, ladies and gentlemen, as President Trump has called for the DOJ to unseal all Epstein grand jury testimony, and the DOJ has said, we're going to do that today, right now. He's also saying that he's going to sue the ass off of the Wall Street Journal for publishing an insane hit piece on Donald Trump. We're going to review all of it right now, ladies and gentlemen. Congress also passes the $9 billion in defunding of PBS and NPR, and Stephen Colbert lost his show on the exact same day. So the Wall Street Journal is getting sued. Good things always happen in threes, all right? This is the way that the Lord works. Wall Street Journal getting sued, PBS and NPR defunded, and Stephen Colbert gets fired, and CBS ends The Late Show. That's how bad Stephen Colbert's reign was there. Good things happen in threes, ladies and gentlemen. It's Free for All Friday. We'll be joined by Mike Cernovich and Representative Scott Perry, who always brings the heat. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Make sure that you are locked in for your future with Allio Capital. Allio Capital is a spectacular investing app for a wild world, and this has been a wild couple of weeks ever since the infamous memo that was dropped by the DOJ. Things have changed and changed wildly. But they've changed in inflation rates, and it's changed with unemployment rates, and geopolitical crises and strife can change markets and shift markets on a moment's notice. That's why Allio Capital is there with their AI investing app that moves your capital and moves it swiftly around in order to make sure that you're taking advantage of macro and micro events. You can be hands-on or hands-off in these portfolios. I've invested myself personally. But the hands-off way has worked out great for me because, well, we're sitting here grinding all day. I'm certainly not a day trader. Download their app right now in the App Store or Google Play. Text my name, Benny, to 511-511. That's Allio, A-L-L-I-O, capital. Text Benny to 511-511. Download the app or text Benny to 511 today. Investing involves risk, including potential loss of principal. Past performance does not guarantee results. Consult with your financial professionals before investment decisions. Okay. Well, Rupert Murdoch should have consulted with his financial professionals because apparently, according to President Trump, he's going to get his ass sued off today. This is the monster news of the day. all yesterday, some of the people that I used to follow, and I say this begrudgingly because I lived 15 years in Washington, D.C. I was a Capitol Hill reporter. I was a White House reporter. I had my hard passes, able to go in and out of the White House, able to go in and out of the Capitol, and so on. It gives me a little bit of street smarts and know-how because I've actually gone and done it. Hit the bricks, as they say. I'm not just down here spouting off in my studio. I've done my time, right? I know a lot of these people. And a lot of these bitchy little gossip girls, these reporters, they're so effeminate and they're so unbelievably lacking in testosterone and catty and feline in nature, and they're all little gossips. And all throughout my social feeds, I could see these old journalists that I followed, that just kind of stay in the same job forever and die in that job, or until the company they work for collapses. But anyway, the point is that they were all chatting about this thing. They love a good piece of gossip, like a bunch of golden girls sitting at the salon, getting their hair permed. And they're all like squealing about the Wall Street Journal. And how the Wall Street Journal has this big bombshell on Trump. And it's going to destroy the presidency forever. Yay! Journalists win! And here it is. This is it. This is the story. And by the way, there is a scandal here. The scandal isn't who wrote the story. Oh yeah, baby. ALX, make sure that we grab that from Susan Crabtree, please. Also, can you see if Susan Crabtree can come on the program? I would love to speak with her about this. Somebody that I meant to ask for before we got on the show. We have a great show lined up today, member of Congress and Cernovich. But let me see if Susan Crabtree is available from Real Clear to come on the program and talk about her scoop here. The reason why is that the person who broke this story, and I'm getting ahead of myself, just so happened to work at the Department of Justice. Isn't that interesting? The landscape that I'm about to present to you is going to make so much of the last week crystallized for you. It suddenly became clear why Trump was so pissed and why Trump's team has been so angry about this. I suddenly got it, okay? And I've been very open about where I think they could have done a lot better in the release of this, and I'm not apologizing for that at all. In fact, I stand by every bit of our journalism. All of our everything we've told you has turned out to be correct. This is probably the single smartest and most informed audience in the entire space. We've been doing our job and getting our sources and telling you what's about to happen, and hell or high water, it's happened now. And we're very proud of that. We told you on Monday, with interviews with Laura Trump or with conversations we were having with federal law enforcement, that there was massive push to change this dynamic in the administration. And that there was going to be a lot more transparency, and that the president was going to allow for a lot more transparency on this issue, and we just had to wait and give it time. And we spent the week laying the groundwork for where the documents actually are. And President Trump kept calling it a hoax, and I couldn't quite figure that out. We talked about it on the show and how I didn't understand, and how the best way to prove that something's not a hoax is to actually release the evidence. And ladies and gentlemen, the evidence has now been released. Okay, so we've set the table. Here's the article. Jeffrey Epstein's friends sent him a bawdy 50th birthday album. One letter was from Donald Trump. Okay, so let me go ahead and read to you the meat and potatoes of this. So according to this article, Jeffrey Epstein had a leather-bound book composed by Ghislaine Maxwell of important people writing him birthday letters when he turned 50. That was in the year 2003. Okay. Well, that's before let's just start from the beginning. That's before he caught any cases, right? It's not like there are people like Bill Gates who loved hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein and loved getting massages from Jeffrey Epstein after his sexual predator convictions. And then there are the people who he was wormholing his way in with beforehand. And I think we need to separate those two groups of people. So clearly, President Trump knew Jeffrey Epstein back when it was his job, I believe, based on his relationship with intel agencies, to wormhole his way into polite society and powerful society. This was part of the op. President Trump was a mark, and so was Bill Clinton, so were a bunch of Hollywood actors, so were a bunch of billionaires, so was the royal family. They were all marks, okay? President Trump, of course, never saw him, disavowed him, banned him from his club, and then never saw him again after he got wind of what Jeffrey Epstein was doing as a predator. In fact, the police in Palm Beach and the lawyer who put Jeffrey Epstein away say that it was Donald Trump who was the key factor in enabling that arrest and conviction. Okay. But you know all of that. But nonetheless, in 2003, that's why the date's important here, though. I mean, that's why the date's important, is because this is pre any of the actual convictions or investigations into Jeffrey Epstein. All right? So, just setting the table. Here's what the article suggests. The article suggests that President Trump is actually a Renaissance vaudevillian thespian who's a flighty, lispy, poetic, that he's a Twilight character, and that he prances around using alliteration and fluttery words, and that he loves painting, like he's in the Renaissance in Paris by the River Seine. I kid you not. This article that provides 0 source documents. In fact, the Wall Street Journal admits they don't even have the letter that Donald Trump wrote to Jeffrey Epstein. So 0 direct source documents. This article says that President Trump painted a picture for Jeffrey Epstein. Okay? Imagine that. And then wrote him this beautiful poem. Donald. Yes. Okay, voiceover. There must be more to life than having everything. Donald, yes there is, but I will not tell you what it is. Jeffrey, nor will I, since I also know what it is. Donald, we have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, yes, we do come to think of it. Donald, enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? Jeffrey, as a matter of fact, it was clear to me last time I saw you. Trump, a pal is a wonderful thing, a very happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. Does that sound... Hey Alex, can you grab me the Donald Trump tweet about Kim Jong-un? Or maybe Donald Trump just saying, "Kill terrorists, you dumb bastards." That's something Trump said. Just give me a couple of them, shall we? Tell me, does it seem to match the way that Donald Trump speaks? I mean, you already know. I don't need to show you examples. Because President Trump has been speaking and giving interviews since the 1970s on live TV and has spoken in the very same penumbrances that he has always had. Donald Trump has books that he has written. He has tweets that he has written, like this one. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un stated that his nuclear button's on his desk. Will somebody from his depleted and food-starved regime tell him that I have a nuclear button, but mine is much bigger and powerful, and it works? Do we have the Trump kill terrorist dumb bastards one? No mercy to terrorists, you dumb bastards! Which one sounds like Donald Trump? ALX, get me they don't know what the F they're doing. Get me that. That's just a final thing. Just get me that clip. Just give me that, okay? Which one sounds like Donald Trump? This, like, flighty vaudevillian artiste? This Shakespearean poet? Who's writing about the mysterious enigmas of life? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Which one? Which one is Donald Trump? We've all seen it. Here we go. This is great. This is great. Dude, yeah. Yeah, here we go. Which one is Donald Trump? Now you got to go to like the last few seconds here. We don't know. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Which one? Right there. Right there. Okay. Or does this sound like Donald?
We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand?
Okay, yeah, got it. All right. And you try to put on a family show, but sometimes you just gotta show people the hard facts. No, this does not sound like Donald Trump. No, the Wall Street Journal didn't show their reporting, didn't show the source documents, and in fact, they openly admit they got the documents from the DOJ. Now, isn't that fascinating? Hold on a second. Yeah, that's right. That's perfect. That's right. I'm a thespian. That's right. Yeah, this is actually who typed out the message. Two very interesting things here on this. One, the source of all of this is allegedly the DOJ. Look at this paragraph. I seem to be the only person who's really seized on this, but it's very important. Pages from the leather-bound album. That's the third graph end of the article. Assembled before Epstein was first arrested in 2006 are among the documents examined by the Justice Department officials who investigated Epstein and Maxwell. Oh, really? How did this author know that this is how that the Justice Department examined these documents? That's strange. How does the author know this? Do we have that Crabtree report? ALX? Okay, yeah, grab me. Epstein and Maxwell years ago, according to people who have reviewed the pages. Wait a second, according to people who've reviewed the pages, well, he just says that only the Justice Department's reviewed the pages. So this reporter is speaking to people inside of the Justice Department and getting leaks, selective leaks from inside the Justice Department. Joe Palazzo. Interesting. So Joe Palazzo says, the DOJ gave me these documents. Well, who's Joe Palazzo? Let's go over here, shall we? Here's Susan Crabtree's reporting on Joe Palazzo. Susan Crabtree says, Joe Palazzo's got a little bit of a problem. Trump's alleged Epstein birthday letter, the Wall Street Journal reporter who broke the blockbuster story alleging that Trump drew Renaissance paintings and wrote poetry to Jeffrey Epstein for his 50th birthday, previously worked for the Justice Department? Do you understand? Now I get why Trump says it's a deep state leak. Now I actually understand. Now I get it. I actually get it now. This actually makes sense. Put all the facts together and you come to the conclusion that in all of this, so if they have all of this evidence, Jeffrey Epstein didn't have oil paintings of Donald Trump. He had an oil painting of Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, by every right and measure, had true business relationships with Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe Trump painted it. Yeah, true. Did Trump paint this? Is this that Killer Klein's got a great idea? Maybe this was the Trump painting. Is this what Trump came up with, the painting? Jerry, grab me a few memes of Trump painting a talk. I know that there are some memes of it out there. I was howling at them yesterday. I was howling. There's so many funny Trump as Leonardo DiCaprio on the Titanic memes. Anyway, get a load of this. Main Justice was Glenn Simpson's wife's publication. What? Main Justice. I've never even heard of it. Does it even exist anymore? So Main Justice is apparently the name of the publication. It was run by the guy who ran the Russiagate documents. Oh my gosh. Glenn Simpson's the guy. He ran Fusion GPS. He's the guy. All right, load some of those. Those are really funny. We'll have a laugh here in just a second. But this is too important. Glenn Simpson was paid by the Hillary Clinton campaign to work with Russian spies to create the Russiagate documents to smear Trump as a Russian asset. Let's just lay it all out here. Hillary Clinton's campaign used Glenn Simpson to pay Russian spies to create fake documents on Donald Trump to rig the election. Now let's set this up again. Glenn Simpson's wife runs a publication that covers the Justice Department, and this reporter that used to work for her is now running what absolutely, by every measure, seems like a fake document to destroy President Trump's second term. The interesting thing about evil is that it really has no capacity to create. It can only destroy. These people are not creative. They don't build new things. It's actually what makes it fun and easy to fight them and easy to call stuff like this out. And now I actually get it. I actually understand now why Trump was calling this a hoax. Because these are the same people running the same op By the way, this reporter didn't leak other information. Who else is in that book? No doubt Bill Clinton. There's no doubt. You know, Bill Clinton was the leader of the Democrat Party at the time. His wife was a senator. Donald Trump was a TV host, I think. Had The Apprentice even started? Donald Trump was a TV host? Yeah. So it's like, this is insane, and it's backfiring right now. The one other curious thing about all of this is not just the Russiagate connection to it, which is there is a direct Russiagate connection, but also the typewriter connection. It's just something that we popped up on X yesterday. Maybe you guys can grab that, please. Is that there's a typewriter connection here. You know, it's very interesting. If you're old enough, you'll remember something called the Killian documents that were trotted out on 60 Minutes by Dan Rather to end George W. Bush's presidency. And George W. Bush was supposed to be undone by these documents that said that he, lied his way out of serving in Vietnam. Turns out the documents were entirely fake. Why? Because they were written on a typewriter using modern day fonts. It was easy to tell those kind of typewriters didn't exist at the time that the document would have been written in the 70s about George W. Bush. It was all fake. It wasn't real. The Killian document saga used a typewriter because they thought that that's how they would be able to get away with it. You wouldn't be able to match people's writing. It would look more official. You wouldn't be able to tell. And it actually, it was what was undone. It was what undid the fact that they used a typewriter, and you could tell that those kind of typewriters didn't exist at the time, was how this hoax was exposed. It's one of the, certainly not the first, but one of the first hoaxes that was utterly exposed by the corporate press and the deep state using it against their enemy. Anyway, the point is that they used a typewriter for this one? Again? We know that this has been a tool of these people for a long time, because of the ambiguity. And so perhaps this was happening here. Anyway, it's a nightmare. And President Trump is now planning on suing. In the Wall Street Journal, President Trump saying that he's going to sue their asses into oblivion on Truth Social. Let's go. Here we go. Let's load up here. We've got quite a few of these. The Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch personally were warned by me that they would be that the supposed letter that they printed today was fake. And if they print it, that they'll be sued. And Mr. Murdoch stated that he would take care of it, but obviously he didn't have the power to do it. And the editor of the Wall Street Journal, Emma Tucker, was told directly by Carolyn Levitt that the letter was fake. But Emma Tucker didn't want to hear that. Instead, they were going with a false, malicious, and defamatory story. And President Trump will be suing the Wall Street Journal and News Corp and Mr. Murdoch shortly. And the press has to learn to be truthful. Trump has a long series of W's here. He's sued 60 Minutes and CBS, which just fired Stephen Colbert. And a fascinating move we'll talk about in just a second. He's won against ABC. He's suing currently CNN and also the New York Times. Donald Trump has also won a number of big motions against the Pulitzer Organization for awarding fake news. So he's on a bit of a hot streak here. And again, it's just another example of President Trump not being able to tell us really what he knows is going on behind the scenes. And now it kind of makes sense. Based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I have asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. This is a scam perpetuated by Democrats, and it should end right now, says President Trump. Pam Bondi following up by saying, yeah, absolutely, I will be doing this today. President Trump, we are ready to move the court tomorrow to unseal grand jury transcript. What happens next? President Trump this morning. I look forward to getting Rupert Murdoch to testify in my lawsuit against him and his pile of garbage newspaper. It will be a very interesting experience. Again, he's on a bit of a hot streak with this. And, well, I wouldn't want to be the Wall Street Journal right now. Because they're getting completely destroyed. And I need the Trump truth from this morning about the Epstein documents, and if there was anything actually exculpatory in them, or anything that was that would have been damaging to President Trump. Because this really proves a very good point. And it's what President Trump saying this morning, what we've all been saying, which is, listen, if there was something that was really bad, yeah, there it is. Thank you. Okay, let's read. If there was a smoking gun on Epstein, then why didn't the Democrats who controlled the files for 4 years and had Garland and Comey in charge use it? They had nothing. It breaks the threshold of believability that the people who hunted down the Access Hollywood tape in 2015, going through hundreds of thousands of hours of footage to find Donald Trump saying something naughty. You're telling me the same guy that said grab by the pussy is sitting here writing this kind of like esoteric poetry? This is another great example of like, we know how Trump talks. And he doesn't talk like a lispy thespian who's sitting there journaling in Amherst, Massachusetts, outside of the local theater. This is not how Trump talks. We've heard the Trump grab by the pussy. we've heard that 10 years ago. Okay? It's absurdist in the extreme. He died like a dog. That's right. He died like a dog. Crybaby Baghdadi. What a bitch. No mercy to terrorists, you dumb bastards. Yes, but that same guy is going, it's an enigma, Jeffrey. What shall we do? Alight this afternoon upon yonder sunset break? Shut up! And then he's painting him a beautiful portrait. It's so stupid. And you know, you could be so lucky for stupidity like this. It'll be their undoing. And in spite of everything, in spite of all of it, and again, I don't think that this has been perfectly handled, and we've been very upfront, and we've been trying to help with the administration in pushing for a better result here, and I think that we've got it. Our sources have been telling us that this is what was on the horizon, and they were right, whether it's Laura Trump, Mike Johnson, dozens of members of Congress, or the president himself, who was open to an FBI special investigation yesterday and is now telling the attorney general to unseal all grand jury testimony. So it's going to be a very interesting time, ladies and gentlemen. Buckle up, pop your popcorn, or better yet, grab yourself a bag of masa chips. Masa chips, ladies and gentlemen, or the used chips at our household. They're all gone. They sent me a massive bag of masa chips, and they're gone at my house. My kids have eaten all of them. They grab a bag and they run away. They're delicious, and they're good for you. My in-laws took my kids to McDonald's, and my wife didn't like that. And the comment was, "Is this the same thing? You ate McDonald's. It's the same thing as in the 80s, you know, when we would take you to McDonald's." That's absolutely not true. The French fries have like 60 ingredients in them. It should be potatoes and salt, right? No. So there's nasty food out there. It's true that there are toxins in your food. You need to have snacks for your kids or for yourselves. I love snacks that don't have the kind of seed oils and grotesque byproducts of coal burning plants and oil production in them. And that's available here with masa chips. Just 3 ingredients: corn and salt and beef tallow. And that's it. And that's why kids love them. And that's why they're approved in my household by my nurse wife, who is unbelievably choosy about what kind of food goes into our household, and that my kids are eating and addicted to, ladies and gentlemen, masa chips. Give masa a try. Go to masachips.com/Benny and use the code Benny for 25% off your first order. Masachips.com/Benny and use the code Benny for 25% off your first order. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, pop some popcorn because we got Cerno on the show. Cernovich has been saying he's going to be offering. Cernovich has been saying he's going to be offering free legal advice to Pam Bondi in order to get this done correctly. Let's listen to it. Let's go. Mike, welcome back to the program. You said that Pam and the DOJ, you've effed this up enough. Why don't you let me help and we'll do it right? What would doing it right look like in the Epstein saga, Mike?
Well, one, I think yesterday was a bad day for all the people who condescendingly told people to quit talking about the Epstein stuff, which I was quite offended by. And I don't get offended much, as if, first of all, as if they can control what other people talk about. But secondly, as if that was even intelligent. It was in fact very stupid, because all they did was left the space open now for this obvious hoax that happened yesterday. Everyone knows if Trump had been in the files, that would have been out during his first term. If he were truly implicated with Epstein, I would have reported that in his first term. Why wouldn't I? Right? Anyone, if you found out information like that, would have reported it. So we know that it's a hoax, but that's what happened by all of the geniuses telling people, how dare you continue talking about this? It was a natural result. So it was badly mishandled. The idea that you could just tell people to stop talking about it without looking terrible yourself was a blunder that's hard to comprehend.
So again, you are a lawyer, you're an attorney, you are someone who's most likely done deep dives like this. Perhaps you know where to look. Some of our reporting has said that justice, of course, has all of the Epstein documents and all of the Epstein evidence because they prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein. They prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell. That's where all the evidence resides. Now it's under seal because Ghislaine Maxwell is appealing, and there's also something like 17 civil suits against Jeffrey Epstein's estate. And so that's where the evidence exists, but that the evidence is mountainous. How do you crack into that?
Yeah, and there's also the financial transactions that the Democrats apparently were able to obtain. Senator Wyden was talking like that. And the way you crack it is you would just reverse engineer how a case gets investigated. Cases don't get investigated when people on the internet talk about them. They get investigated when people come to the Department of Justice or the FBI or local law enforcement with information. In the case of the FBI, they write what are called 302s. These are files of interviews with witnesses and complaining witnesses. And there would be dozens of 302s in the Epstein prosecution. You would unseal those. You would redact the names of any potential complaining witnesses, but those would be unsealed. There's search warrant applications that were filed and applied for before Jeffrey Epstein was raided in New York. Why don't we have that? That is something very low-hanging fruit. There's no reason in the world we don't have the search warrant application. You could say the 302s take time to go through, but the search warrant application was filed already. It was filed under seal. That could have been released a long time. And I think the reason that it wasn't released is because the search warrant application was so narrow that if it had been released, then people would realize what I said since day one, that Jeffrey Epstein was not prosecuted to send him away to prison for life. He was prosecuted to give the regime time to mop things up, to make it look like we're going after him hard, pay attention to this. But there weren't any raids of his other properties initially. They only raided the New York property. That's what I keep harping on because it's so important. Why did they only search his New York property? Well, because we don't have jurisdiction. But why wouldn't you have jurisdiction? Why wouldn't the SDNY doesn't have jurisdiction over everything Epstein did? Good luck. Good luck with Bannon. He was building a wall in Texas. And SDNY said, no, you're not really building it. I mean, he was. We all saw it. And they somehow found jurisdiction for an El Paso, Texas charity project. But they didn't have jurisdiction for what Epstein was doing, even though he indicted him. It's simply not credible. So I believe what these documents would show was that the Epstein prosecution from day one was a containment operation.
So we have footage here, drone footage that, of course, we aren't allowed to have, and they were very embarrassed when this drone footage was being taken at Epstein's Island. And you can see the New York Police Department there, along with a SWAT team, raiding Epstein Island and carrying out boxes and boxes and boxes of evidence. And right there, you have like terabytes of information in that Mac tower that's being wrapped up and ready to be shipped to New York, Mike. Where is all this evidence exactly? And
where are all of his emails? Where are the emails? Reid Hoffman was emailing people left and right to try to introduce them to Epstein and try to bring them to the island. Epstein had a Gmail account, right? Why don't we have the Gmail emails from Epstein? Seriously. That's what annoyed me so much when people were saying, move on. And I said, well, sure, I would move on if we had the search warrant applications, we had the 302s, and we had his emails. You would say, okay, what? Maybe there's something more. You could wonder. You could always wonder. But if you had that kind of information, then you would say, okay, we sort of have what we have. Maybe there's some kind of hidden files, or maybe there's something else secret, but we don't have anything. That's what is so galling about the narrative from some people, is we don't have anything, but you're telling us to move on, and that there isn't anything. There isn't emails from Jeffrey Epstein. There isn't emails. He never said. I mean, we've seen emails. Some of his emails have been published. His emails don't exist. I mean, they absolutely do, right?
So what would be your advice to Pam Bondi right now?
It's what I posted, man. They screwed this up. I don't know how to be. We don't have time to mince our words and dance around the issues. It was a mistake, and now it's harming Trump. And the truth never would have harmed Trump. I guarantee you, there's no emails from Epstein to Trump, right? I guarantee you that the emails from Epstein are largely to Silicon Valley power players, people like Reid Hoffman, people like Bill Gates. That's what it is. And the question is, who within to the Trump administration gave Trump the false narrative on Epstein? That's what we need to be asking. Is someone or multiple people within the White House told Trump, oh, the Epstein files are a hoax. Why is anybody even talking about it? Who did that? Because whoever did that is a traitor. There's no other way to put it. Is a traitor and a spy. And that's why we're having this discussion, because we shouldn't even be having to debate the stupid Wall Street Journal article. That shouldn't even have happened. And it wouldn't have happened if the information that we've requested, which is quite reasonable, had been released.
So the Wall Street Journal article is very fascinating. The reporter there worked for Maine Justice, which is a Glenn Simpson operation. And now I get it, this whole, like, the calling of it a hoax. Now that I've seen more evidence, just like with Russiagate, just like with January 6th, just like with COVID, we can now call it squarely a hoax, just like with the pipe bomber. You can say, well, why? We've seen the evidence now. The guy literally worked for Glenn Simpson. He worked for the Russiagate hoax guy, and he worked inside of the Justice Department, and he won't show us the letter. That's exactly right. He won't show us any of the evidence.
Right.
It's filthy, Mike. It's filthy, dirty.
No, the minute it hit, I was at the airport flying back, and I go, oh, Trump drew a doodle. Come on, right? Somehow he drew a doodle. That'd be like saying I drew a doodle. And I don't draw. Trump doesn't draw. I do use words like enigma. Trump doesn't. He never has. You're an enigma wrapped in a mystery, Jeffrey. It doesn't happen. And it was, so to me, it was obviously false. But my concern was that this was self-inflicted, because as you know, people attack you enough, even lies kind of stick.
Yeah,
they become they jam things up, and they become part of the mess. And had we had what we should have had already, then the Epstein matter would be closed, at least as close to closed as it could be.
Was this a massive backfire by every measurable standard?
People call it, 40 chess, and now Trump wants to release things, and maybe that was the plan all along. And I don't have a lot of. After Trump's first term, he made mistakes, right? Trump made mistakes in his first term. Some mistakes were quite catastrophic, and this was just a mistake. He was given bad advice. Will it backfire because now Trump is interested, because he realizes they're going to drag you into it if you don't figure out what's up? Quite possibly, because if you're Trump, you would be furious, of course. Why wouldn't you be? And hopefully Trump is looking to the people around him and saying, well, why did you tell me this whole thing was a Democrat hoax? Why did you lie to me? Why did you tell me to insult some of his most loyal supporters? Why did you do this? What was your agenda? Because there's clearly nefarious people in the room now with Trump.
Why would you release it on 4th of July weekend in a way that insults so many people in an unsigned memo that you don't explain with video of a prison that doesn't actually show Jeffrey Epstein's cell or show the complete video? All of it seemed so sloppy, and it was bound to backfire. But my question, Mike, is this targeted Wall Street Journal piece. Now, this is going to have the opposite effect. It's almost a gift to Trump, is it not?
Well, if you're going to have a lie told about you, the more implausible the lie, generally, the better, because there's no verisimilitude in this. There's no contour that would suggest that it's credible at all. So, in an ideal world, you don't get lied about and you don't get falsely accused of things. That would be the Platonic ideal. But if you're going to have something like that level, that you want it to be so impossible that people are going to immediately say this is absurd. But it would have been better for him had it not happened, because you notice there had been a lot of media hoaxes his first term, because he'd been aggressive in protecting his reputation. He'd been aggressive with the defamation lawsuits. He had settled a number of lawsuits against many media outlets. So they decided to quit lying about him, or at least telling really big lies about him. And this might indicate, unless he files suit immediately, which he said he will do, and I hope he does do, that it opens the floodgates again to this dishonest stream of information from the media, which harms the country and harms all of us.
I just got a wave last night as we were covering this of nostalgia, of deja vu, Mike. It's like, oh my God, there it is. The obviously fake, lurid garbage that's being peddled that the vast majority of people don't believe. I mean, the psychotic, like brain dead hamster wheel in the brain meme libs will believe it, but everyone outside of Blue Anon is like, oh, wait a second, you just destroyed your credibility. Like, absolutely nobody believes this. I was like, man, there it is. There it is. So this Epstein thing is going to bring that out of the media again. That'll be the end for them. Mike, the reason I was so excited to have you on was because you've been the guy calling out from the wilderness about this for a very long time. We dug through your X account. Here's a banger from 2019. Old Cerno. Good old Cerno. The Epstein lawsuit, plaintiff victim wants the record unsealed. I want it unsealed. Miami Herald wants it unsealed. But nothing about this case makes sense. You've been calling for this for a very long time, Mike.
Yeah, we had to fight in court to get records unsealed that everybody involved wanted unsealed, right? That was what blew me away, is that that's again why I won't be condescended to by people some of who weren't even around during Trump's first term. I won't be condescended to by people who say move on when I go, well, you don't even know what you're talking about. You don't know anything, right? You don't know that this civil lawsuit file stuff was all filed under seal. That's not how civil lawsuits work. When you file in civil court, things aren't done under seal. In arbitration, you can have things under seal, but you can't have it in civil court. Everybody knows this. Your social security number, maybe your income, certain details can be. You don't just file every document under seal, but that's what had happened. And I sued to unseal it. Miami Herald joined my lawsuit to unseal it. The woman who was Virginia, who unfortunately has passed away, she agreed once the Miami Herald entered the lawsuit that she said, yeah, you're right. It should all be unsealed. So then the only person who didn't want them unsealed was Ghislaine Maxwell. And she was able to jam us up in court for a couple of years. I mean, I lost, I think 2.5 years, maybe 3 years, to prevent them from being unsealed. So why? Why was a legal standard that's completely invalid? You can talk any lawyer, any civil litigator and just say, hey, can a lawsuit, every filing in a lawsuit in federal court be filed under seal, and the whole document's redacted, not just personal information. Everything is redacted, from the case law you cite to the reason you're suing. And they'll all say, well, I've never heard anything like that. Okay, but what happened in this case? Why? Right? Why? Jeffrey Epstein had an email account. We don't have his emails. Trump can't just say, hey, Google, you're in an FTC case already. You got enough problems. Just send us all of his emails. You can't send people to look through those emails, print them out. Come on, get real, right? They think we don't know what a 302 is. Yes, we do. This is all standard stuff, and we don't have it, and we're not going to be talked to this way. And now hopefully people understand when they were telling us, oh, you can't talk about this anymore. Great, you're the reason the Wall Street Journal reported that hoax, because you left the field open for the dishonest.
We were speaking with Speaker Mike Johnson this week, Mike, and I loved his answer that he gave to us on this. And he says, the only way to earn the trust of the American people is to trust them back. And you got to establish that here in this case. And I really don't see any way out. But since you've been one of the wise men on this issue for a very long time, perhaps you could lay the brickwork for us on this. And now, since we have the president ordering publicly the Attorney General to begin releasing documents, what will satisfy you, Mike? What should the American people be wanting now?
We have Podesta's emails. I want every email from Epstein. Why not? Why not? Oh, it might embarrass people. I don't care. Don't care. We don't care now anymore. We're done. And I want his every email he ever sent. I want that out. I want every financial transaction sent. I want it. I want to know. Embarrass the people? Sure. There are probably people who didn't know who he was or that were just doing normal business. I've invested in companies before. Who knows, right? But one company might have a bad guy you don't know about, but you just whatever. Sorry, we don't get to play these little games anymore. It's the Epstein matter. I want to see every transaction, every wire transaction to and from, and then if it embarrasses people, great. Then you can just explain yourself, right? You have emails from Epstein, great. You can just explain yourself. That's fine. We're beyond giving people all this time to go through everything to protect everybody's feelings. We don't have time anymore. The search warrant applications, those should have been unsealed from day one. No excuse from Pam Bondi. Maureen Comey was blocking it. Great. Maureen Comey was fired. Good move. She should have been fired a long time ago. Why do we have James Comey's mole within SDNY? She should have been gone a while ago. Okay. Unseal search warrant applications. That's not even a hard thing to do. There's no reason not to. 302s, redact information about complaining witnesses, unseal them, right? And there's no negotiation here. They're either going to do the right thing or they're not. They're either going to do the right thing or they're going to play games and act like that Epstein has never sent or received an email, that Google doesn't have a record of everybody's email. Google has everybody's emails. Get out of here, right? If you're on Gmail, guess what? Everything you're sent or received to Google, they have. Okay, fine. We know they're there. So quit talking to us like we're stupid. I think that's why a lot of people were furious by the reaction, because you're just thinking, no, if you have discovery in a lawsuit, that there are companies that come through, third-party companies that come through, and they go through your email. This is not hard stuff. This isn't hard stuff to do. This isn't black magic here, or white magic, or any kind of magic at all. So why are we being told there's nothing? That's not true. It's just objectively not true.
So just very quickly in conclusion here, Mike, given your broad understanding of this operation and somebody who studied it within the letter of the law and has asked some of the most piercing questions about Jeffrey Epstein, what was this? Why is this? Why does this remain such an untouchable third rail that seems to be the undoing of so many people? What is going on?
Yeah, there's no other case would be handled this way.
Of course.
It wouldn't be.
Yes.
Right.
That's why it's so strange. That's why it's a meme, Mike. It's why it's a meme, Mike.
No. You got your name dragged through the mud over a hoax. Why weren't they protecting your privacy? Right? That because they don't care.
Yeah.
Right? DOJ doesn't care. Yeah. This is what they do. So, but now we have a whole. So even if it's a hoax case, they don't care. They run with it. But suddenly this Epstein case, now we care about privacy. Now we care about everybody's feelings. Now we don't want to release too much. Okay, well, why? There's no explanation other than he's above it all. He's working with the people who pull the strings, or maybe the demonic entities that pull the strings. Because otherwise we'd have had this stuff a long time. We'd have had this stuff 7 years ago. It would have been just another criminal case where you have the file, you go over it, and you say, okay, here's what we know. There wouldn't have been this litigation and fight and sabotage at every angle.
We said it live on the stream to Mike Johnson 2 days ago. We're like, why protect a dead pedophile? What's in it for you, man? It's the simplest question. And every American who pays their taxes and is like raising their families on this dark earth, like, they have a right to know they're not paying taxes to a predator cult. Like, that's a right, actually. It's like the lowest possible bar that the government should achieve in this nation if they wish to be respected. And so I think this is common sense. I hope that people are coming to their senses on this. Mike, you're one of those people who's brought a lot of people to their senses. Everybody needs to follow Mike. 1.5 million people already do, right here on his X, a place that you can find eternal wisdom. Maybe you could find a little poetry. Maybe you could find the word enigma even being used here and there. You should follow Cernovich. Mike, I just want to say thank you again for being on the show and lending your wisdom.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for what you do, Benny.
See you, man. Ladies and gentlemen, our incredible producer team has been able to grab Susan Crabtree, who's one of the busiest reporters in the country, and has got her locked into the show, and she'll be on the program in just 1 minute. She broke a massive story about this saga right now inside of the Wall Street Journal. She's a spectacular investigative reporter who's joined us before from Real Clear Politics. She'll be on in just 1 moment. The backbone of our show is telling you the truth and the news. We're so honored to have been able to be right on this issue. There are so many people who've been blackpilling, so many people who've been trying to fracture the MAGA base. We are not one of them. We are the people who are doing our level-headed best to muscle forward the populist movement and to ask the same style of questions that got us to the truth when it comes to January 6th or COVID or Hunter Biden's laptop or Russiagate. And boy, howdy, does it seem like there's a Russiagate connection here. It's wild. Susan Crabtree on in a second to talk about it. Helping us in that news sourcing and finding is our friends at Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is the cell phone company that is the backbone of this company. We are constantly on our phones using that connectivity to do the work of Salt and Light here on the program. Patriot Mobile is America's only conservative Christian wireless provider. But here's the truth. There's a lot of different wireless providers. Why go with Patriot Mobile? If you're worried about coverage, Patriot Mobile uses all 3 major networks. If you have service in the country today, you'll have good or better service with Patriot Mobile. Is switching a hassle? Their 100% US-based customer service team will get you activated in minutes. If you're stuck in a contract, they have a buyout program. It's a win-win-win, folks, and we can start supporting the people who support us. So go to patriotmobile.com/Benny, call 972-PATRIOT, use promo code Benny for a free month of service today. Switch today, patriotmobile.com/Benny, call 972-PATRIOT. Ladies and gentlemen, Susan Crabtree of Real Clear Politics, national political correspondent, joining the program right now. Susan, always our honor to have you on the program, and your scoop was top of our feed this morning. What a fascinating connection. We just covered it off the top, but perhaps you could give people a very quick rundown of what you found out this morning about the Wall Street Journal bombshell and its connection to Russiagate.
Well, I just wanted to set the record straight because all these connections, these swampy connections to DC, and the reporters like to pat themselves on the back. I was actually responding to this Wall Street Journal colleague patting Joe Palazzolo and his colleague who broke this story about this birthday letter that allegedly Trump sent to Jeffrey Epstein. It was tawdry. It's full of innuendos and according to the Wall Street Journal. But I was just looking at this. It's sort of nauseating, patting themselves on the back when so much of the DC media, the legacy media, got so much wrong during the first Trump administration and during the end of the campaign. And so I know just from my background, reporting in DC for 31 years, now I'm in California. I left the swamp. I couldn't take it anymore, honestly. That Mary Jacoby is Glenn Simpson's wife. Glenn Simpson is the founder and CEO of Fusion GPS. Mary Jacoby and Fusion GPS produced the Steele dossier. Now, Mary Jacoby started her own publication. It's called Main Justice. Main Justice hired Joe Palazzo, and he worked there, according to his bio. That's the only place he worked. According to his bio, I since have learned that he worked at the Baltimore Examiner. But why is this important? Because so many of the players in the Russia Gate story can have connections through their wives. Nellie Orr, as you know, Benny, I don't have to tell you and your viewers, but Nellie Orr is married to Bruce Orr. Nellie Orr wrote the Steele dossier, and then Bruce Orr pushed it into the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. He was a DOJ prosecutor. And to me, it's just interesting. We need to know full disclosure, all these little swampy connections, and how reporters get fed information. I'm not saying this is where it came from. I'm just saying that we all need to be skeptical all the time.
You know, you saw this on a tertiary but also interconnected plane when it came to the reporting from Natasha Bertrand about the failure of the bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities. She's the same reporter that pushed the 51 Intel hoax for Politico. And that article, to this day, Susan, doesn't have a addendum to it, doesn't have a note attached to it, doesn't have any corrections at all. It just remains on Politico's masthead, even though it is thoroughly debunked and utterly discredited. And it seems to me that this style of regime journalist shouldn't be getting accelerated in their careers or promotions. They should, of course, be gas station attendants in New Jersey, right, or toll booth workers for their sins and crimes. But they seem to be getting promoted, and then they seem to still be running ops like this. And it's distressing, I suppose, for the industry.
Yes, I mean, I looked at Main Justice. Main Justice was basically a newsletter about the Justice Department. It was sort of like this internal Justice Department thing that, like how Politico started with their congressional reporter, Defense Daily. It was just like a roundup of news. And I'm sure there were some stories broken there once in a while, but how does someone from Main Justice get to the Wall Street Journal? It's a question I'm asking. I don't know, but I'm saying that Mary Jacoby and Glenn Simpson worked for the Wall Street Journal. I knew it was very difficult to get to the Wall Street Journal back when I was at Roll Call newspaper, pre-Politico. So, only one roll call news reporter made it out there. It was Jim Vandehei. So, that was like back in the day, a big deal to get to the Wall Street Journal. It wasn't so obviously biased back then. But, Joe Palazzo, he broke the hush money story with the Trump about Trump, and that is a legitimate story. Although how did he get that? I'm interested in that. I just want people to know the connections here, and I just am questioning whether I am a proponent, and I'm on the record saying you should show not tell when it comes to Epstein. I'm definitely on the record on that. So I feel like there was mistakes made here because people say, oh, just, nothing to see here, folks, turn away. No. The American people are invested in this story, and rightly so. And you have to show them why they shouldn't care and they should believe you. I'm 100% on board with that as a journalist. I take it the string and you pull on the string and you take it where it leads. So I'm just thinking that, we ought to know the connections here behind the reporters.
Can you explain something to me, Susan, as a journalist? In the third graph, the open of this article in the Wall Street Journal, it says that the only people that have ever reviewed these documents are Justice Department officials. And that seems strange to me. And then the Wall Street Journal admits they don't have the primary source documents. Well,
Yeah.
this seems wildly reckless. If you don't have the documents and you can't print them to the American public, boy, you are really skating on thin ice here when it comes to proving your reporting or the credentialism of your reporting. This seems reckless, Susan.
Yep. I just know with 31 years in journalism, I'm aging myself there, but 31 years in journalism, Washington journalism, now, national political correspondent, that I would want handwriting experts to look at this. I wouldn't want 10 to 15 handwriting experts to look at this to make sure that it's authentic before I went with it, considering our history here, considering the Steele dossier and all the tawdry elements of that were proven untrue. So I don't know how they verified this if they don't even have it. I mean, it's a story. The fact that he got this book, I get it. That's a story. This birthday book, it's disgusting. It shows the connections in New York and in politics. I understand why it's a story. But the Trump element, considering what we know about the Steele dossier and how it came to be and what it was used for improperly to get to get a court-approved order to spy on the Trump campaign. I mean, you got to have. I just question it. I am always questioning everything, and I am as you know, Benny. I just wrote a story that was pretty critical of the Trump campaign about the Secret Service, so that they were asking to remove the farm equipment, or not to remove it, but not to have farm equipment to block the AGR building. So I'm not afraid to ruffle some feathers here. I think that there was a back and forth on that. The Secret Service, I believe, actually deferred too much to the Trump campaign in that instance, because whether we will never know whether the farm equipment would have prevented Thomas Crooks from getting a shot off and almost killing Donald Trump and killing Corey Comparatori. But I'm not afraid to ruffle feathers when I need to. I feel like I'm a pretty straight journalist, and my threshold for running something like that would be extremely high.
So how can they possibly validate their reporting here if they don't have the primary source documents? If they haven't published you'd think it'd be fair to then publish every letter, right? These were the times when Bill Clinton had flown 27 different times on the Lolita Express. The year was 2003. This was like peak Bill Clinton, Jeffrey Epstein massage time. And I can say that because there are photos of it. And so this is just it was Bill Clinton oil paintings that were hanging in Jeffrey Epstein's mansion, not Donald Trump oil paintings. And so what, you're going to protect potentially everybody else who wrote him a letter, assuming that this is true? You're going to protect everyone else in the book? And then the question I suppose I have is that, and then followed up by, well, then where the hell did you get this? If justice is if you admit in the first graph that justice is where are the only people who have seen this evidence and that those are your sources, then you have to assume that it's people from inside of the Justice Department who are selectively leaking on their president.
That's right. But, the Justice Department has not been completely, they're inheriting a complete and utter politically weaponized mess. Okay. And same with the Secret Service. And I think there was politics involved for sure in denying the assets to Donald Trump. So that's my specialty, the Secret Service, but the Justice Department equally, more so, because law enforcement tends to be somewhat conservative. So there's more Trump supporters, I believe, at the Secret Service than likely the FBI and Justice Department before Dan and Cash got there. So yeah, what in the heck? So you don't think that there are strange motives at play here? I'm just saying it's a legitimate story. There's a birthday book on Epstein. That is it's interesting for sure. It's relevant for sure. But they did dish about Alan Dershowitz in there. They outed his really disgusting. Is Epstein Jack the Ripper? That is a very loaded comment, to say the least. So, they're selectively showing who they who they support and who they don't by which birthday letters they're outing there. It appears to me, it appears to a seasoned journalist who's been at this for a very, very long time.
It just seems to very much reinforce the hoax element of this, that it is only Donald Trump's commentary that's being luridly tossed out there here, whether it's real or fake, and that the source of this is the Justice Department, that the author openly admits the Justice Department is the only people who've reviewed this. And that's where I get my sources. And they worked for Maine Justice, that has literally direct ties to Russiagate and the PP dossier. And that's a huge scandal. How can we possibly ever trust these people? How could we trust people that come from that ecosystem? It defies common sense.
I thought that, originally when all of this was coming out, I knew that Mary Jacoby started this Maine Justice publication. And, I always thought, well, interesting. Did she start it with Fusion GPS money? Who is funding this? Now, she's her father was connected to Hillary Clinton. He's a wealthy financial advisor, I believe, or investment advisor in Arkansas. So, and Mary Jacoby also stopped journalism for a while. This is another thing I thought was very odd. Mary Jacoby stopped journal. She worked for the Wall Street Journal. Her husband Glenn worked there first. And then all of a sudden, her byline starts appearing in the Wall Street Journal. I'm thinking, okay, a marriage, that's fine. Okay, I get it. She's a good journalist. He's a good journalist. He was an extremely good journalist. He broke a lot of good stories on Russian banking and all kinds of, problems there. But I feel like he wanted to make more money. So her ties to Hillary Clinton are through Arkansas. Her dad was the Rose Law firm where Hillary Clinton was attorney, was a partner, I believe, was one of his clients. So she's from a very wealthy family. I knew that when I was cutting my teeth in Washington. I knew all these players. And so, when the dossier came out and the people it was going to, the reporters it was going to, it seemed like there was always a connection to Glenn Simpson. Obviously, he's the guy. There's a connection. There's a family of reporters, and a lot of them are connected through their wives. Michael Isikoff's wife worked at the same publication that Mary Jacoby did, that I did, Roll Call. So I know how this swampy thing works. I do. I've lived it.
It's gross. It's gross, and I think that you're discredited, and it makes me very sad to see people like Natasha Bertrand get rewarded for running these ops, and I don't care what party they're on behalf of. They're just fake. They're not true, and they're meant to deceive the American public. And our job should be truth and light. And it's why we've been banging our fists and talking till our voice cracks about just disclosure and transparency on this issue. And that's what the American people demand. Right. In closing here, Susan, what is your reporting played out when it comes to this issue? I mean, I think that many people who have their pulse on the American people obviously know that this is something that won't be going away and won't be easily quelled, and that probably the only way to go about it is what President Trump began to do last night, which is ordering more disclosures from the Justice Department.
Yep. I think they have to show, not tell. I'm going to stick with that. You cannot tell the American people nothing to see here, folks, when this has been an absolute scandal from the get-go. And you have Alex Costa saying, well, we didn't touch it because, well, I was told to, be careful with it because it was an intelligence official. And then he loses his job in the first administration. That prosecution stunk to high heaven. And, these women who were basically tortured and raped repeatedly by powerful people deserve their day, of justice. They deserve justice. And I will take this as far as it goes, just like you, Benny. I think we need to know what happened there. And we need the files, whatever files we have, if they're redacted, just start showing some transparency. I just think you're not going to win over. You cannot tell the public. You have to show the public why. And I want one more thing on the Mary Jacoby issue. I forgot. When I remembered as I was tweeting this morning, as on X, posting on X, Mary Jacoby went to work for the Wesley Clark campaign in 2004. Then why does she get to just jump back into journalism and write and pretend she's a mainstream journalist and start this publication called Main Justice and hire people like Joe Palizzazo, and then they go on to the Wall Street Journal? Why is that not tainted? I don't get it. And it's a double standard. It's a complete double standard in journalism.
That's a complete double standard. You are the standard, though, and we follow you, and every single day we read your X feed. Here it is on the screen for all of you. Nearly 150,000 Americans follow Susan Crabtree, and she also has a brand new book out called Fool's Gold about California, the state that she, I believe, currently resides in. Is that correct? Yes.
That's right. It's about Gavin Newsom and all of his corrupt practices and his ties to China. I wrote it with Peter Schweitzer's top researcher, Jed McFadder.
Well, Adam Schiff is on the cover, and so, ladies and gentlemen, if you want the real story, go follow Susan Crabtree. Adam Schiff was the last guest on Stephen Colbert's last guest before Stephen Colbert gets fired. So it's like, there's just such beautiful irony in this world. Thank you, Susan, for always illuminating our timeline.
Thanks so much for having me, Benny, and stay on it.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know that this has been a week of massive breaking news. We are constantly in need of our caffeine. I don't even drink anymore. I don't have any stimulants other than waking up in the morning, getting on my knees and praying, going down to our humble little gym that we have. Just a couple free weights and a bench press. That's what we got. That's all we have room for. That's all you need, really. And then I have my coffee. That's my mornings, man. And they're peaceful and they're wonderful. And then the kids wake up and everything goes to hell. That's the best. Anyway, the point is that it's my blackout coffee that gets me going, man. My blackout coffee keeps us rocking and rolling on weeks like this, man. We've been all over, and it's been a crushing news week. We've been part of the news cycle more than we typically are, and it's a huge testament to this team that I know also runs on blackout coffee. Ladies and gentlemen, hard work and grit and the American dream built this company, and it built Blackout Coffee as well. Blackout Coffee started in a home garage, roasting small batches with just one mission, to make damn good coffee. And they comprise of conservative values. And fast forward today, they're roasting in-house, packaging every single bag themselves, and shipping straight from their 64,000 square foot facility run by a team of 30 hardworking Americans. They're incredible people. Ladies and gentlemen, drink Blackout Coffee. If you believe in hard work, American values, and coffee that actually tastes like coffee, you can go to blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Use the code Benny for 20% off your first order. Support the American dream. Drink Blackout Coffee, blackoutcoffee.com/Benny. Start drinking real coffee. Okay, let's freaking go. Stephen Colbert has his show canceled. So funny. All good things happen in threes. That's just the way the Lord makes it. I don't make the rules. If something funny is happening, just count on 3 of those things happening in a row. And we have President Trump suing the Wall Street Journal. We have NPR and PBS defunded that we covered yesterday. And then we have Stephen Colbert getting fired from his show. And it's been so devastating, Stephen Colbert's destruction of David Letterman's late night host seat. Did you watch David Letterman or did you watch Jay Leno? That was the era that I grew up in. Some people watched Johnny Carson. American late night TV is legendary for a reason. It's part of culture. It's something that people used to gather around and watch our politicians get skewered and watch them get treated fairly, and watch the comedians who hosted those seats. I was a Jay Leno guy, to be perfectly honest with you, never a David Letterman guy. But whatever, who cares? It was a different era. It was a golden era of comedy when you could see a Republican presidential candidate on there. It wasn't really about politics. If it was about politics, then the hosts weren't kissing everybody's asses and licking their boots of one political party. They were assaulting the political party. They were acting on our behalf. It's a pressure release valve. We talk about this all the time on the program. This is what comedy is. This is why it's so depressing to tune into Saturday Night Live and watch them not make fun of Joe Biden. Joe Biden's the single easiest, most mockable president in our lifetime. You'll never get a more mockable president on earth than the Joe Biden regime. But Saturday Night Live wouldn't even make fun of him. They had Gerald Ford falling down the stairs, and they wouldn't make fun of Joe Biden. who was literally falling down the stairs, unlike Gerald Ford, who just slipped in rain. Joe Biden was falling on sunny days, ass backwards down the stairs. Anyway, the point is that the job of a good comedian should be a pressure release valve. And how do you do that? You make fun of the powerful. You skewer the elites. You prosecute the pedophiles, right? It's a culture war issue. The best comedians understand this, and that's why the fastest growing comedians are like Kill Tony and Rogan, obviously Theo Vaughn. They understand this. That's a power dynamic on our behalf, on like the working class's behalf, to skewer the powerful, no matter what their party is. But Stephen Colbert became a vessel of power against us. And his ass got fired because everybody stopped watching. Not even your own side likes that, right? Not even your own side. Like, it becomes unfunny. You begin to lose you begin to lose your comedic timing when you're just constantly licking the boots of the powerful. It's not funny at all. Well, Stephen Colbert pieced out. It was a shock to everybody last night. I guess it wasn't a shock to us because we've been following this, but here's Colbert muling that not only has he destroyed his own legacy in this seat, but he's also destroyed the entire show. They'll be destroying the whole show. That's how devastating the Colbert reign of non-comedy has been here. No, not the clip. Sorry. Not the clip, Klein.
Sorry about that.
All right, okay. Why don't we load that as a play-beside and we'll play the rest of it. Klein, I was saying, ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement here with Scott Perry, who we love having on the program, but he's having technical difficulties and cannot get onto the program. So I was chatting with Klein. Klein thought I was saying end the clip, but I was saying no, we should just move on. We'll rebook the congressman when he's ready, and has his technicals correct. Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Let's listen to the rest of Stephen Colbert muling at his audience. Go. What the hell was that? What is this? TDS kills the brain, mind, body, and soul, man. Don't let yourself, you've seen us on dark days. You've seen us on really bright days. You've seen us all be really thrilled on election night, about the happiest I've been in a very long time. And you've seen us had to muscle through tough situations, like when President Trump gets indicted, right? Or shot. Well, what's really important is to have things that ground you and make you someone who isn't just an insufferable twat, which is what Stephen Colbert had become because he decided to betray his audience and attack them. He viewed his audience and he viewed regular Americans as the enemy. And that just corrupts your soul, especially in this business. We're constantly trying to serve you and find better ways to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very proud of our work this week. It's the opposite of what Stephen Colbert is doing. As we are aggressively searching for what the audience wants, Stephen Colbert decided to berate and abuse his audience by attacking them and their sensibilities. And by using by spending hundreds of millions of dollars on his show, because that's what this kind of stuff costs, to create vaccine advertisements like this that berate and propagandize in a very unfunny way his audience and insults their intelligence. Here you go.
The vaccine.
I'm a Yankee Doodle vaccine. Shot, 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 shot.
The vaccine.
We are the vaccine. Get your shot right now. In your arm, it won't hurt. Then go hug your mom. Get your shot. Hug your mom. Get your shot. Hug your mom.
The vaccine.
Inoculation for the whole nation. Get a shot in your arm and get a haircut. Inoculation, go on vacation, but please watch out for the next mutation.
The vaccine.
Let's talk about facts, baby. Let's talk about antibodies. Let's talk about getting dirty after herd immunity. Let's talk about vax. Let's talk about vax. Let's talk about vax. Let's talk about
The vaccine.
the global pandemic has come to your town. Yay, hey, vaccinate now. There ain't no more TV. Get off of your couch. Please take some time to vaccinate now.
Thank you, me swabbies. The vaccine.
Vaccine, go get your vaccine, vaccine. We make you sexy, sexy. Don't be.
It's insufferable, and I'm sorry that I had to do that to you all. My apologies. Donald Trump roasting Stephen Colbert this morning from the top rope. Absolutely love that Colbert got fired. His talent was even less than his ratings, and I hear that Jimmy Kimmel is next, and he's even less talented than Colbert. Greg Gutfeld is better than all of them combined, including the moron on NBC who ruined the once great Tonight Show, which is it was an absolutely great show. So there's your good news, ladies and gentlemen, going into the weekend. We'll keep you posted on the channel as to what happens next with these disclosures and with the documents. And, well, we'll see. We'll see. God has a plan. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ask Benny Anything segment of the show. We do it every single Friday. Let's freaking go. Shannon Wells. Do you think that legislation to prohibit foreign-born people from holding public office is a good idea, and would you help push for it? It would take care of those like Ilhan Omar, Mondami, etc. Yeah, absolutely, and I can say this because our founders would have, I think, agreed with this quite steadily. There's a large body of literature from our founding fathers about being an American and being nothing else. Theodore Roosevelt wrote a great speech about how there's no such thing as a hyphenated American. And so, yes, absolutely, Shannon Wells, this is something that we should deeply and richly consider. There was a time when a lot of America's population was foreign-born. That was in kind of the inception of the country, when there were so many people coming here, because America wasn't even a real place. America was a colony, right? It wasn't actually a real place. It was a colony of somewhere else. But now that we have hundreds of millions of native-born Americans, somebody's going to have to explain to me the benefit of having foreigners be judges in our land. Something like a third of the district judges are foreigners in Washington, D.C. In what universe how is that functional? How is taking the illiterate and median 70 IQ populations of South Sudan and Somalia and plunging them into Minneapolis, in what way does that enrich Minneapolis? What net benefit is that to Minneapolis? Somebody needs to explain that to me. Do it slowly so that I can understand it. I only went to community college, so maybe there's something I don't get about that. But I'm from the Midwest, and I'm telling you that all available data, and a lot of this comes from the New York Times of all places, says that is how you destroy a community, in fact. That is how you create a zero-trust society. People who don't speak English, don't have our customs, don't have our cultural sensibilities. And then you just take all of what ends up happening is you just took all of Sudan and you take all of Somalia and you move it to Minneapolis. It's not like they become Minnesotans. They just remain Somali. You just created mini Somalia in Minneapolis. Go talk to the residents there about how they think that's gone. In fact, we plan on doing that. Get ready.
You're exactly right, 33%.
What's that?
Foreign-born judges in D.C.
33% of foreign-born judges in D.C., according to Grok. Yep. Ashley Davidson says, I've been watching your show for a long time, and I want to say, don't stop what you're doing, Benny. Ignore the haters. You're giving us access to people we wouldn't have ever been able to speak to, and your show receipts. You show receipts on everything that you report. So share with us what has inspired you to be a journalist. I talk about it every single show. And there hasn't been a single day without haters. I love the haters. They're salty, salty tears. They fill my cup, and that's why we actually literally have a giant salt shaker on the show. It's amazing. Actually, the worst thing that can happen to you is not being talked about. Boy, it's fun to have a cultural impact. It's a privilege given to us, and God has a plan, and we say it on every single show. And why do we do it? What is the motivation? I have this little family. And I have these little kids that I come home to. And they come running to me at the door when I come home. And I want to create a nice country for them. And I think that's the most important thing in life. And a cursed generation is one that doesn't leave a better country for their own children. That strip mines the place and abuses it. And then casts a curse on the next generation. This is what I come home to every single night. Ashley, this is my motivation. Here we go. This was me last night. So I spent the whole day at the show last night. We were griping and complaining and doing our thing, right? And this is it. Yeah, my son was upset that he's slow. He's still slow. His sisters are faster. He's upset. That's it. I'm not a really complicated guy. That's it. That's the motivation. That's it. That's every single night for me. And I lock in and I get that refresh and that recharge, and it'll be there for the rest of my life. And so that'll be the driving force of the rest of my life. And I'm sure that you have children. Maybe you want children. Maybe you know little children in your family, right? If you're an aunt or an uncle, or whatever you are, maybe you're a grandparent, maybe you're a great-grandparent. Whatever you are, you know some little kids that are totally helpless and are going to inherit what we build for them. And so what are we building for them? That's the motivation on this program. I want to build for them a country that locks up pedophiles and that destroys pedophile cults. That's what I want. Okay, so, like, obviously, lowest possible bar. John Stetton says, let me see if I get this straight. Epstein killed himself, but there was no evidence. Did I get that right? Yeah. Epstein killed himself before he realized it was all a hoax. Too bad. Yeah. But as we said on the show, this is something that has... Now I understand more of the messaging on this, right? As I've seen the hit pieces on Donald Trump, now I sort of get more of the messaging. Okay, I understand where the White House is coming from. And now I mean, listen, all that matters is the result. And the result is, if the result is that the White House releases everything, then that's a great result. Okay, you had to ping, okay, there were some mistakes in getting here, fine. There were a lot of mistakes in getting here. But if the end result is that we get everything and it's fixed and the American people understand what the federal government was doing with Epstein, well, that's a great result, okay? Even if it was painful to get here for some people, fantastic. We're proud to be on the side of a core of MAGA protectionists. You grab that New York Times article. Hey, Alex, can you grab that? It's a New York Times graphic that showed where we are on this. It's so funny that they watch. Here you go. There it is. We're proud to be part of a group of people who love the president and love this movement, who have openly said, like this is something that we need to work on, right? In this group is, of course, Tucker Carlson, Glenn Beck, General Flynn, Laura Loomer, Steve Bannon. And there's little old Dust down in the corner. These are all of our friends. These are people who love MAGA. These are people who care about this movement. People who care about President Trump. Charlie Kirk's in there. Some real homies. Maybe you've seen most of these faces on the show. You're going to say that Steve Bannon and Laura Loomer and Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, and that you're going to say Charlie Kirk hates Trump? Are you insane? Are you brain dead? Are you lobotomized? Quiet. Hush. Calm down, son. Understand that there are people who are far better than me and have worked so much harder than me at, because I wasn't really, because I wasn't around, right? Steve Bannon's been doing this work for decades, before I was born. Same with Beck. Beck had a radio show when I at year zero of my life, right? Like, they've been working so hard and so long, and Tucker's 20 years older than me. And these guys have built these things, and they care so much about this country, and they do it on purpose, right? They're doing it on purpose. They're asking this out of love. And they're asking this out of care and concern, and they're so locked in with the audience and the American people. And it's always been our honor, quite frankly. What is that?
Alex, just the Wall Street Journal gets involved.
Why are they? Why? Well, look, Wall Street Journal gets involved. Here's us. There's Klein on stage. Is that ALX? There you go. Okay, great. Fantastic. But what? There you go. There's great. Wall Street Journal. We don't work for the Wall Street Journal. I don't understand that. Chiron, we don't work for the Wall Street Journal. We promise you. In this speech, which was last weekend, we joined the forces of Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk in politely and gently explaining that this is an issue that people care about, and that it would be a good thing, actually, to maybe be just out with it. And so anyway, that's the little circles of influence that the New York Times put together. Gotta send him a better mugshot. I don't know if I was hungover there or what. Those bastards. Whatever. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that we're proud of our work here, and we've been right. Praise God. God help us. God help us. We're just trying to build an independent media company here. We take no corporate sponsors. We got no strings to hold us down. We decide what runs around here, and we're building this media company for you. You are our bosses. You are the master around here. We listen to the chat, and nothing but love. The greatest way for us to show love to you is our verse of the day. From Corinthians 5:7. For we walk by faith and not by sight. We took a bruising this week with some of our reporting, because we were reporting that the Trump administration is going to change their course on this. We reported that on Monday. Then we had on Laura Trump, and then she said that, and we got dragged. You're such an idiot. You're so stupid. Well, you know what? We trust our sources, and we trust the people who are talking to us, and the people who we are working with, and we're honest about what we believe. Walk by faith and not by sight. And the point of this program is to bring salt and light, right? That's it, in our own little humble way. And so we've been telling you the truth this week, and, well, we're damn proud of it. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what? In the end, we win, and that's what matters the very most. So keep praying, keep your head on a swivel, and let's rock and roll. Have a great weekend in the most incredible country on earth, this United States of America. We're going to make it a better place. See ya. It's your boy, Benny.
My dearest Jeffrey, there must be more to life than having everything, but I won't tell you what it is. We have certain things in common, and enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday. Signed, Donald Trump. How is that? Is that good?
The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest kings, and their dying legacy, media deal weeds. Soon will the Benny Show come to mind. The salt from lives for fun. Be the gold and bring the gun. We sail for number one.
bound to mine the salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun. We sail for #1, the biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest king.